Tonight's presentation is going to be put on by Mr. Rob Crisell. His career has included publishing, law, and commercial real estate. Rob is now a writer, actor, speaker, teacher, and winemaker located here in Temecula Valley wine country. His book, California Avocados, A Delicious History, is the first and only book on the 175-year history of the avocado in California. Is available for purchase here this evening at the end of his presentation. Rob will talk about how California's favorite fruit has become one of the most famous and iconic foods of the 21st century that I always have on my counter ripe this time of the year. So please, without further ado.
All right. Thank you so much, Dave. Yes, I am. Thank you for... Did you? So did I. I was not in a show this year, but I was in King Lear last year. I got my eyes gouged out in the second act and had to wander around blind. Did you see me? I didn't see you.
We didn't know you then. Oh, get it.
Okay. So my name's Rob Crisell. I want to thank the Temecula Valley Historical Society, in particular Dave, Rebecca Farnbach, and the whole board for having me. I've certainly been to some of your events in the past, and I have known Rebecca now for many years because I wrote a book called Temecula Valley Wineries, which was in 2023 for the same publisher that Rebecca did her Temecula Valley Wine Country, which was the book she did with the Solurzos in 2009. And this was a follow-up of sorts, but it's really 20% history, and the rest is sort of a look at the current state of the wineries. It's in color. It's supposed to be kind of a guidebook. And so it's in a lot of the wineries. And I have written lots of articles on the wineries and have been interviewed a lot. And I make my own wine since 2020. And so for the last few years, what I do, and it's always an open question about what I do lots of little things. My wife is a physician in town. In fact, I'm sure some of you have seen her. Don't raise your hand, please. But she has been a long-time urologist in town, and she does one big thing, which has allowed me to do lots of little things. So that's one of my little things, is making wine. But today I will be talking about my 2024 book, which was for the same publisher, Arcadia Publishing, and it is a look at the fascinating history of the California avocado industry. Now, I grew up in Fallbrook, California. Here's some of the little hats that I wear. There I am blind up there. And I thought I knew a lot about avocados. And so after I did the wine book, I said, why don't I see about this history of California avocados? And man, I did not know what I was getting into. One, there had never been a book about it. However, there had been something called the Avocado Society Yearbook, which has been published every year from 1915 to today. So 110 years of journals, which I had to go through, of course, along with a ton of other support material that can be found at the Huntington Library. And I interviewed about 40 people for the book, and it took me about a year and a half. And at the end, wow, I knew a lot about the California avocado industry. And I tried to put it into this book, and the book is filled with recipes. It has a section on how to grow an avocado tree, which I decided to try to do at the beginning of the book when I was writing it, and a whole bunch of other fun facts. It's filled with photos, some of which you'll see today. And that's some of the other things I do. My wine book, my labels. I always tell people, now you might not like my wine, fair enough, but if you don't like my labels, you're a monster, because I have nice labels. So now, as you pointed out, I fell in love with Shakespeare early on, not during high school, not during college, but after college, living by myself in Scranton, Pennsylvania, working at a magazine called Highlights for Children magazine. Very monastic life there. My wife was doing medical school. My future wife was doing medical school in New Mexico. And so I would go into New York City every now and then, and I got to see Shakespeare on stage there. And suddenly a whole new world opened up to me. I memorized dozens and dozens of speeches. And eventually in 2012, I started acting with a group called Shakespeare in the Vines here in town. And then I started teaching at Murrieta Public Schools primarily, but also all over the place, how to not hate Shakespeare. And I have a TED Talk called How Not to Hate Shakespeare. And now I go to senior communities for the most part, and I talk on Shakespeare, avocados, and wine. And sometimes I do it all at the same time. So, and today I was reminded that September 22nd, it kind of struck me, that's an important date. But it's September 22nd. You threw me off. Yeah, thank you. So the 22nd happens to be the Battle of Harfleur, which was in the 100 Years' War, and it's when Henry V went over there, and it's chronicled in Shakespeare's play, Henry V. And there's a very famous speech in there that I'm going to do for you. And I'm a little worried about my microphone because I haven't been known to blow out mics. Shakespeare in the Vines, we usually don't get mics. And so I've learned to project, but I will try to damp it down. So Henry, September 22nd, 1415, has been trying to get into this city, this walled city of Harfleur in France. He's decided that he needs to be king of France as well as England. And so he is, that's a good idea. So he has been banging away at this walled city, and he creates a breach in the city wall. And yet his guys, his men, are really tired of dying for him, and they're done with it. And so he has to give them the most rousing speech in history. And when he does, they, of course, leap up, and they follow their coach through the breach in the wall. He takes the town, and then he wins the Battle of Agincourt, and he becomes king of France and England. So I'm going to do that speech to celebrate how it's like about 600-year-old speech. Okay, so once more unto the breach, dear friends, once more. We'll close the wall up with our English dead. In peace, nothing so becomes a man as modest stillness and humility. But when the blast of war blows in your ears, then imitate the action of the tiger. Stiffen the sinews, summon up the blood, disguise fair nature with hard favored rage. Now set the teeth and stretch the nostril wide. Hold hard the breath and bend up every spirit to his full height. On, on, you noblest English. Dishonor not your mothers. Now attest that those whom you called fathers did beget you. Be copy now to men of nobler blood, and teach them how to war. And you, good yeomen, whose limbs were made in England, show us here the mettle of your pasture. Prove that you are worth your breeding, which I doubt not. For there's none of you so mean and base that hath not noble luster in your eyes. I see you stand like greyhounds in the slips, straining upon the start. Game's afoot. Follow your spirit, and upon this charge cry, God for Harry! England! And St. George! Okay. Thank you, thank you. No, thank you. So, are you awake? I do this with the kids sometimes that I teach at St. Jean's and other places before we have to do before they have to go on stage before a show. We'll do a version of that. So how it started. Now, I need a timer because I have made a mistake with this show only about 20 or 30 times, and I put about 5 pounds of guacamole in a 1 pound bowl. And so what I'm going to try to do is just give you the highlights of the book. And if you like the book, it's here. I'll sign it at the end. But mostly I want to save time for questions at the end. So Rebecca, Dave, how many minutes should I set it for? So we have plenty of time for questions. Are you sure 40 minutes of talking? Okay. Okay. So I'm going to, all right. Sounds good. Are you guys up for it? It'll be fun. Set timer for 35 minutes. Just in case. All right. So I am from Fallbrook, just across the line. I graduated from Fallbrook High School. We have a Fallbrook High School teacher right here who worked with some of my compatriots there. And I graduated in '89. And I grew up in a 3-acre Fuerte Grove by a little place called Sleeping Indian, if you know where that is, not too far, but it's kind of at the edge of Fallbrook near Oceanside. That was the view of from my house with our Fuerte Grove, and that is the sign in Fallbrook advertising us as the avocado capital of the world. Now, the avocado capital of the world, spoiler alert, is no longer in Fallbrook. It's probably in some place like Uruapan, Mexico, Michoacan. But that's getting ahead of ourselves because my book makes the contention, and I think it's correct, of course, that California invented the avocado as far as America is concerned. And in a very real sense, we invented the avocado industry, starting in the late 1800s, more or less. So the avocado industry has about 3 different time periods. 1850, first avocados are planted in Santa Barbara, more or less, but they soon migrated down to LA. Like everything else, where all the people were, that's where avocados really took off. In fact, there are still 110, 115-year-old avocado trees at the Henry Huntington estate. He was the person who made the first commercial grove. And all over Los Angeles, you'll come upon a gigantic tree, not bearing fruit anymore, and you don't even realize that that is a 80-foot avocado tree that's more than 100 years old. So you can't read all those questions, but what I ran into, because of all the history in the 100+ years of these avocado journals, and just the pack radish, hoardish nature of the first avocado pioneers, who were more like evangelists than they were, I don't know, farmers. They believed in the avocado. The avocado has been eaten for thousands of years in Central America, its homeland, and Mexico, eventually made its way through the islands, thanks to the Spanish and other people, and made its way to Florida. Well, Florida avocados, if you've had them, there are 3 types of avocados. There's a Guatemalan type, a Mexican type, and a West Indian type. A West Indian type, they grow really well in very humid, very saline soil places like Florida or Dominican Republic or Brazil. They tend to be sweet, they tend to be low in oil content, and they tend to be disgusting. So if it had been up to Florida, no one would have eaten avocados. But what the first growers in California noticed in the late 1800s, early 1900s, is that we could grow the Guatemalan and the Mexican type and all the hybrids. So those had high oil content and were wonderful. So here are some of the questions. Maybe some of you will ask later on. I just highlighted a few. Why didn't the Spanish missionaries bring avocados up? Nobody knows for sure. I mean, they brought everything else up. As I point out in my book, they certainly bought vines eventually. They bought citrus and everything else, but not avocados. Why? Well, early on, avocados, we're talking about with Columbus and Cortez and others, when they showed up, they associated avocados with lust. They saw these half-naked indigenous people, and they were eating their avocados, and they even, so the story goes, had to lock up their young women during avocado harvest season lest they be ravished. And the Spanish, who might have been misreporting this a little bit, said, whoa, this has something going on, and they loved it. The name of an avocado for the longest time was Spanish pear. Eventually it became known as an alligator pear, but it was a Spanish pear. When George Washington had one in 1700s with his brother in Barbados, he loved the Spanish pear, and he wrote about it in his journal. But that might have been why they didn't bring it up from Mexico. They were a little afraid that it would drive the natives crazy. What's so funny, as racist as that is, as crazy as that is, when the English got a hold of the avocado finally and started reporting about it in the 1600s, they said, yes, this is the Spanish pear, which tends to make you very lusty and you know, want to do the deed. So of course the Spanish love it very much. So it kind of backfired on them. So here's some more questions. Does the word guacamole mean testicle sauce in Nahuatl? That's interesting. If you look up guacamole right now, well, don't look it up now. If you look it up and say, what does guacamole mean? Just innocently, you will find about 500 articles telling you that it means testicle sauce. It's the dumbest myth in the world. So in Nahuatl, the Aztec language, you have aguacatl and mole. And aguacatl means, brace yourselves, avocado. But apparently avocado was a slang term for a male gonad. And that might be because of the way they hang on the tree. Maybe it has something to do with all that lustiness that the Spanish observed. But for whatever reason, genius reporters later on decided that it meant testicle. It does not. Mole does mean sauce. Okay, more questions. All right, so I'm going to skip ahead fairly quickly. Don't fall in love with any of the lovely slides, but these are all slides and pictures from my book. And so in 1850, Judge Ord plants the first avocado tree in Santa Barbara. And from there, a bunch of avocados were planted in Montecito. Maybe the first grove of avocados was in Mount Montecito. Interestingly, famous celebrity who lives in Montecito, do you know? Oprah Winfrey. Supposedly, and Prince Harry. Supposedly, Oprah will not go anywhere without a supply of her own avocados from her estate. So avocados are still very much part of Santa Barbara County and Ventura County. In fact, they've become much more a part of those counties than San Diego, which we'll talk about a little bit more. But in the early 1900s, there were all these people growing avocados in and around LA primarily, and a little bit in San Diego County. And somebody named Wilson Popenoe and his dad, who owned West India Gardens in Altadena, said, you know what? We're onto a good thing here, but there's so many different kinds of avocados. At the first meeting of the Avocado Society in 1915 in downtown LA, there were already 80 varieties of avocados. That was too many. As the early marketing people said, there's too many cats and dogs. We just need some good ones that we can grow throughout the year, because the bad ones are making us look bad. Because there are bad avocados out there, the Florida avocados, for example. So they were sending his son, Wilson, there with the burro, down to Guatemala and down to Mexico to find the perfect avocado. And in 1911, they found an avocado outside of Mexico City that they called the Fuerte avocado. And that's the mother tree right there. And they brought it back. They didn't call it Fuerte at first. It took the 1913 freeze that killed all the other plants at the Altadena West India Gardens nursery. And the only one that lived was this little scrawny Fuerte tree. And so they nicknamed it Fuerte. And they decided, well, we'll push this out the door. And some pig farmer bought it. And avocado history is filled with people who decide to throw everything over and start planting avocados. And in fact, I'm going to talk about one of them today, who is our guest here. Rekha Patel is in the corner there. She is a New Zealander via Orange County. She's been in Orange County forever. And just a few years ago, she bought an avocado farm in Fallbrook, Rainbow area, and she was the one who supplied the avocados tonight. So I want to thank her so much for doing that. She runs a site called Avocado Monthly. And so this is a new adventure for her. It was a new adventure for the pig farmer named Whedon. And so he grows it. It is the best avocado anybody's had. It's prolific. It survives frosts. It looks nice. The avocado industry says this is the avocado we need to get behind. And so for 50 years or so, Fuerte avocado rules California. And at some point, 80% of the avocados in California are being planted. So we have a bunch. The birth of the industry is in 1915. It's competing against oranges. There's no competition. There's a lot more oranges. But the avocados, they're noticing they make a lot of money. Even back in the 1915, 1920, 25, avocados are going sometimes for $1 an avocado. They can only be sold in high-end restaurants and high-end retail places. And so the marketing people say, look, that's a good thing. Let's market this as the glamour fruit, as the aristocrat of fruits, okay? It's weird, it's high fat, it doesn't have sugar in it, it's not sweet, but we love it. Other people will love it too. So this is the story of the California industry, taking this obscure fruit, only grown in Latin America, and not, it should be known, commercially grown in Latin America. It was a backyard fruit in Latin America. And early on, the industry said, this is our opportunity. Florida has terrible fruit. Mexico doesn't want to commercialize it. Let's do this thing. And that's what my story is about for the next 60, 70 years. So there's some of the varieties there at the bottom, all sorts of different ones, of course. Real estate comes into play, as it always does in California. That guy, Edwin Hart, was a real estate magnate, a developer, and the first president of the Avocado Society. And he has the brilliant idea of linking real estate with avocados. And so he says, look, buy an acre in my estate in Vista or La Habra Heights or Encinitas, comes with an acre of avocados, wealth for life. If you want to retire, there you have your acre of avocado and you're set for life. So you can see what happens. We have booms and busts in the avocado industry all over the place. There's an avocado grove in Encinitas in 1929, before Fallbrook had its first avocado festival, the first avocado festival we thought in the whole world. There was an avocado festival in Carlsbad in 1925. So as people started expanding from LA, they started moving down to unincorporated and very very little populated towns in rural, in places like that. Here's some San Diego VIPs that I interviewed. Ralph Foster is pictured there in his house. His father in the 40s kind of started avocados in Fallbrook, and Ralph carried it on. Ralph is now, how old is Ralph, Reka? 85. And his house is now Reka's house. So she took and is running his business, Avocado, or her business, Avocado Monthly. Del Rey Avocados, that was one of the first big avocado places. It's over in Fallbrook. Here's some other people, Bob Lucy's, Del Rey. These are people that I talk about in the book. There's the first shipment in 1955. What's it say there? It says, New York bound avocados. Now, the problem that California ran into was it was really expensive to ship avocados back east. And even though eventually we had 46 offices, Calavo did, California Avocado, people just didn't understand avocados. And so you had culinary schools in the 40s trying to chop open the avocado and chew on it and say, this is the worst thing I've ever had. They did not understand how to use it. It was a learning curve. And so it took people a long time. Temecula Murrieta has an avocado industry. I'm not just talking about Duluth, which of course has avocados, but California, even though now Mexico imports all their avocados here, and 90% of the avocados you and I eat today come from Mexico, they're processed in places like Temecula and Vista and Fallbrook and Ventura still. So Mexico brings their avocados up here to the border, and the packing houses take it from there. One of the biggest packing houses, Westpac, over in Murrieta in the Silvergate Center. Another big one, Steve Taft Echo Farms, over on Diaz. So we are very much part of the industry. That Westpac, you can't read that, but Westpac, this little Murrieta company founded in 1982, now owns groves all the way down to Peru and Chile and Mexico and, of course, California. And Temecula Valley itself has avocado groves. That guy up there is in Rebecca's book and is in my book. He arguably planted the first avocado grapevines, experimental grapevines in the mid 60s, 1966. But he also planted a bunch of other things like citrus and avocado trees. And there are still some very old avocado groves down here. I went out today because I love you guys so much and I wanted to be topical. I took photos in Glen Oaks Hills. That's an avocado grove there, and a very large avocado grove on Linda Rosea Road, about 2 minutes from my house. I didn't even see these things before I started working on the book. And now, of course, I'm like, that's an avocado tree. Lots of marketing. I wanted to show this. Now, the dream of farmers early on, Fallbrook, I should say, avocado farmers, was to have a fruit that they could sell all year round. Because the thing about avocados, doesn't matter what variety it is, it has a season. 4 months, 5 months, 6 months, and then it's dormant and it's growing. But as you can see, and it's kind of hard to visualize, these are the names of a bunch of different popular varieties. They were more popular at different times in history. And these are the months, January through December. These are the months that they're active. So the idea was you could, by planting 6 or 7 or 8 different varieties, supply all of California and the world's needs with maybe 6 or 7 different avocados planted at different times. Unfortunately, the marketers said, we don't want 6 or 7. We want, let's see, 1. Because it's hard enough to sell avocados. We want the perfect avocado, Fuerte. And that began to change, and I tell the story of Fuerte versus Hass later on. That's Avocado Monthly again. That's Reika's little symbol. A lot of recipes in the book. Did you guys like the guacamole? Okay, so in the book, I tell the story, thank you, of the story of guacamole. Now, guacamole has been eaten for thousands of years in Central America because it's not that hard to figure out, right? You scoop out the avocado, mash it up, put stuff in it. Avocado toast, by the way, has also been eaten for hundreds of years since the Spanish brought bread, but before that it was eaten on a tortilla. So the millennials didn't invent it. They just like it a lot. And, but the avocados you had, one is from a 1949 recipe. I don't have it up there, but that was the first recipe published by Calavo because avocado was weird. Guacamole was weird for us Americans. It was hard to say. We called it avocado dip for like 30 or 40 years. But eventually in 1949, Calavo published the first recipe of avocado dip guacamole, and they gave a little phonetic spelling of guacamole, and it was chopped up onions, salt, and lemon, and that was it. But the authentic avocado guacamole is that one right there in the metate there, and that has chili peppers in it. It's from Michoacan, and it has no lemon because in Michoacan, they don't have citrus. They certainly never had citrus until the Spanish came. And so authentic avocado recipes, not the kind in Ensenada or Tijuana or Yucatan, but the authentic ones don't have citrus in it. We Americans, we're in California with lemon and lime all around us. It's just a marriage made in heaven, right? Who likes their guacamole with citrus on it? Yeah. So the one that I made is a hybrid of the boring one and the spicing one. And I put citrus in there and a little less spice. This was our guacamole tasting break, but you've already done that, so I'm not going to worry about it. But you can see, wonderful thing about avocados is you take the seed, you plop it in the ground, and the same tree does not come out of that seed. It's heterozygous, like a lot of fruit trees, like grapes. And what will grow up will be, in all likelihood, a totally different avocado. Might be related a little bit, but it'll be a different avocado altogether. And more than likely, it will not bear fruit. But you'll have to wait 3 to 5 years to find out. Every avocado tree that you buy in Home Depot or anywhere else is a hybrid. It's got a different rootstock, and it's got the variety that's glued onto it, grafted onto it, And it's done almost all of them. The largest nursery in the world is the Brocon Nursery in Ventura, California. Again, showing how California is still avocado land. We're still at the heart of this. So the commercial area continues. That's a blimp, or I'm sorry, a float from the Rose Parade. It says Vista Calavo on there. There's a model. We've started to use a lot of pretty women and actresses and actors to sell the guava. So she's standing on a building in LA. And so we have our different expansions. A big second expansion takes place in the 50s, where it goes from roughly, 7,000 or 8,000 acres planted to 24,000 acres planted. Then the third expansion in the 1970s, 20,000 to 73,000 acres, primarily again in San Diego County, because by now LA is growing houses and commercial developments, no longer agriculture. And avocados started to go mainstream. But really, still, it was mostly the West Coast that was eating the avocados. If you were in, and you probably know this because probably some of you come from the Midwest or back east, probably you didn't have many avocados in the 70s or 80s or 90s because they weren't around. They were being eaten in the West. And eventually, the Heart Association decides that fat is bad for you. We have the big war on fat in the 70s and 80s, and avocados get put on that list. And a bunch of women's magazines, where the avocado industry was doing a lot of advertising, said, women, avoid avocados. They will kill your diet. They're poison for your diet. So the avocado industry had to go on the attack and start marketing how avocados are a good fat. That was a new concept for people, and how they actually lower your cholesterol. And they do not have cholesterol. Some people thought they had cholesterol. Fat equals cholesterol, right? Wrong. So Angie Dickinson was starred in one of the most famous ads of all time, and she's holding that little slice, and she says, would this body lie to you? And that became one of the most famous ads in history. Now, avocado world starts to develop about this time. And in the 70s, Mexico starts looking at America saying, wow, this is quite a market that's getting developed. All this money being spent on marketing. How do we get into this? The problem is Mexico had been banned from sending avocados to the United States for 83 years. Why? Because of a seed weevil discovered right around 1915 when the California Avocado Society was founded. Coincidence? No. So it was very protectionist, and we managed to keep Mexican avocados out of America until the year 2000 or so. But it didn't matter for a while there because Mexico didn't have an industry. Eventually they did. And they started planting a little avocado, bumpy, black, weird avocado that somebody in La Habra Heights invented, a postman named Rudy Haas invented. And they said, we like this avocado because it ships easier, the skin's thicker, it's black, so it doesn't show bruises and things like that. And it's got an even higher oil content than Fuerte. We need to push that. So Mexico ends up planting almost all Hass. They take out their native populations, they plant Hass. By now, California has gotten over its anti-black because they thought the fruit looked rotten. Black fruit was rotten. They had sold people on the green fruit that stayed green all the way to ripeness. But Hass turns black. I don't have one here. Turns black on the tree sometimes, but certainly when it gets ripe. People began eventually to get over that, and they started to like that. And by the 70s, Fuerte and Hass were neck and neck. By the 80s, Fuerte was something like 20%, and by the 90s, it was 7%, and today it's 2 or 3%. It's all Hass all the time. There you can see there's Peru. That's what an avocado grove looks like in Peru. Michoacan, the one on the far right. We're talking hundreds and hundreds of thousands of acres grown of avocados. No need for water, low labor, costs. How can California compete with that? So yeah, in the water. So eventually NAFTA is passed and Mexico gradually is allowed to start sending their avocados in. Already, California had peaked at about 85,000 acres planted in their state, about 500 million tons. That was our high water mark in about 1987, 1990. And we thought demand was not going to get any higher. And Mexico said, I think it can. Let us start shipping all of our avocados. We'll start in the east. So they sent it to the east. Demand started going up. They sent it to the Midwest. And eventually, Mexicans complained and said, you have to allow us full access 100% of the year. And so suddenly there was just an avalanche of avocados. And this is what happened to the demand curve. So this is 1980, 500 million pounds eaten, roughly 2 pounds per person per capita. Here's 2000, roughly, when Mexican avocados start coming in. They're the yellow. You can see already the demand curve is still at 2, but it's starting to tick up. Here we are, 2010. Look at all the Mexican avocados now. Demand is doubled to 4. We're now eating, 1.5 billion pounds. And now in 2018, we're eating 8. Really now it's more like 9 pounds per person and 3 billion pounds of avocados in the United States. We're the biggest consumer in the world, and it's almost all Mexican avocados. Yeah, but in a way, it's good because California just was never going to be able to produce enough avocados. Our water costs are too high. In fact, at one time, up until about 1987, the 80s, San Diego County produced about 70 to 75% of California avocados. Now they do about 25% because avocado groves have migrated north to Ventura County and Santa Barbara and San Luis Obispo because there's protected farming easements up there and there's professional farmers who had never wanted to farm avocados because they were doing strawberries and citrus, but now they're like, hey, why not do avocados? They're apparently endlessly popular. Now look what happened. Mexico is 29% of the world's avocados, but look at all the other countries that got into the act, largely because California's evangelism. We sent scientists, we sent packers. Packers got involved in those industries. We created avocado world from California. So there's Mexico, Colombia, Dominican Republic, Peru, Indonesia. It goes all the way down, and Mexico, California, the United States is 3% of that total now. And that's showing that Ventura now is roughly 60%, or 40%, and the others. That's where our avocados are produced now. Sorry to make you blind with these, but this is just my last graph here. I find this fascinating. This is the California avocado season. So the season runs roughly from April, because this is when Hass becomes starting to get ripe, and it goes through June, and it starts petering out. You might be eating the last of the California Hass tonight, because it kind of starts to peter out right now. But look at Mexico. Mexico just stays consistent. Peru is purple. Have anybody seen any Peruvian avocados lately? They're not that good. The problem with Mexico and Peru is they make a pretty good avocado, but they have to travel for 3,000 miles in the case of Mexico, and in Peru, even longer by boat. What that means is they get to spend a long time in very cold temperatures in a refrigerator. The Mexican avocado you might eat, it could be 3 months old. The California avocado you eat from Reka or anybody else is going to be right off the shelf. It's going to be right in the grove 2 weeks ago, and now you've got it. So Mexico was the biggest element of the avocado revolution. The other part was pre-ripening. You might not know it, but 40% or so of the avocados you eat are pre-ripened. They are picked from Mexican trees, taken in cold storage. They go into American or Californian West Pack over here in Murrieta, and they're put in pre-ripening facilities where ethylene is pumped through them for about 24 hours. Then they're brought down to cold temperature, and here's the miraculous part. It gets sent to Poughkeepsie or Atlanta, and when the retailer takes it out and puts it on display, it is going to be ripe within 48 hours. As opposed to a regular avocado taken into cold storage, you put it out there, it's going to be ripe in 6 or 7 days. So people did not want to make a date with their darn avocado. They wanted avocados that are ripe tonight. And this pre-ripening revolution allowed them to do it. And so that goosed demand too. And this is the final element. The third element, nutrition. So we all assume avocados are good for you today. But as you know, from in the 80s and 90s, they were under attack by health nuts for being too fatty. That wasn't accidental that we love them today and they're in all these diets like the Mediterranean diet, because before about 2005 or 6, there had been 9 studies, nutrition studies on avocados. Today, there have been 55. So all that was paid for by the new money coming in, Mexican money. They formed this organization called the Hass Avocado Board, and for every percent that Mexico sold, a little bit was set aside for research. And so all this research was funded, and here are all the wonderful things that avocados can do for you. They reduce risk of cancer, help prevent type 2 diabetes, help in weight loss because they're satiating, hydrate the skin, promote daily fiber content, promote hair growth. Now, I have to say, that last one has not proven true for me. So, and there's some future items. I think that's a good place to stop. I would love to answer all your questions. I found that usually people, especially in Southern California, have a lot of questions. So I'd love to do that. Dave, are you the first person? Oh, you're going to hand that out?
Yes, sir.
Good. Whew. Sorry. Like I said, a lot of guacamole in a little bit. Yep, he's going first. Yes.
I have 2 or 3.
2 or 3? How about 1?
Well, okay. Well, first you said it's all. Okay, you have to graft your
Yeah.
avocado. What is the root stock? Is it also an avocado? Or
Yes.
is it?
It's a particular type of avocado usually, as Reka knows, because she's an avocado grower, called a Dusa. And a Dusa has proven very hardy against root rot. Root rot is something that has plagued the industry and really killed tons of trees in the 70s and 80s, is still with us, but excellent root stocks like Dusa now have really kept that to a minimum. And it's also, hardy. And then they graft on there whatever they're going to put on there.
Are there Dusa avocados?
Yes, but they're probably a bad avocado. Have you ever had a Dusa? No, they're really only for the rootstock now. So it's just very interesting how that works. It's true with grapes too. When you look at a grapevine, it's always a different rootstock, and then you put your cab or whatever on top. But the rootstock, often some random grape variety. Yes, sir. Sorry.
Yeah.
He's got that. You got to grab the mic.
Yes. My wife and I, we love Shakespeare in the Vines. By the
Oh,
way.
good.
And tonight we loved your acting.
Oh,
It was
thank
very
you.
well done. Now I'm not saying that because I want to score a free bottle of your wine, but because it's true. So my question to you is, why are avocados so expensive?
That's a good question, I guess. They have always been relatively more expensive. One, they take a longer time to grow. One interesting thing about avocados is they can be stored on the tree, which avocado growers really like. So they can stay on the tree for 4 years, phenotypically ripe, then you cut them. But the shorter answer is water costs, labor costs. You can't pick avocados with a machine. That's part of it. But it's also supply and demand. And avocados, really, they seem expensive. But remember, the ones in the 20s and 30s were even more expensive. So a lot of avocado growers say, look, they're not expensive enough, especially the California people. Mexico keeps it artificially deflated, the price. It should be a lot more expensive, thank you, than it is, because our water and labor here in California is so darn expensive. And we have to jump through all these environmental hoops. And is Mexico jumping? Is Peru jumping through those hoops? We don't know. Probably not. Thank you. I got it. So supply and demand, I guess. Yes, sir.
Two questions. Is Fallbrook still the capital of the world? I mean, that they like
Avocado capital of the world.
They like to profess
They have the
are.
sign.
Yeah, and they'll keep doing it. And the second question is, of course, we drive down the freeway many times and we see the avocados are up on hills.
Yeah.
Can you explain the process of how they're picked if they're up on the hills like that, and how they? I mean, are the workers climbing hills and picking them? Is there a machine that actually does it? I've always wondered every time I drive by.
Yeah. No, well, it's a good question, and Reka should. Yeah, Reka should be answering this question, but Reka, I've got the mic, so I'm going to do it. Your first question was capital. No, Fallbrook is definitely not the capital of the world or avocado world, but in one sense, I mean, they have Delray Avocado. They still have Calavo still here in town, Mission Produce. In some way, this area is still a hub, not just for American avocados, but because Mexico is the largest producer, for the majority of all avocado consumption in the United States comes through California or goes through other facilities owned by Fallbrookians and Temeculans and Vistonians and people like that. So, and we have the festival, 63, we started that festival. It still is like the largest festival, I think, in San Diego County. But as Reka will tell you, they're mostly selling solar panels and other stuff. So the real capital is somewhere down in Michoacan, Mexico.
Yeah.
Oh, it's all hand-picked. And when you see those very steep hillsides, they're just great at picking. Sometimes I think they have to tie themselves on, but they've just got a bag. It's all hand-picked. They're like billy goats. You do it not for the money. Sometimes you do it, well, you do it for the money, of course, but it's a difficult labor. And without Mexican labor in particular, which has always been critical for California, we wouldn't have had an industry. And Mexicans, I interviewed a lot for this book, Mexican Americans, they love the land. They came from Mexico with that agricultural mindset, and thank God they did. The other big revolution, remember I told you guacamole was so exotic. Well, what made it the most popular food practically in the United States? Mexican cuisine. In the 80s and 90s and 2000s, Mexican cuisine, Mexican restaurants exploded. We have 200,000 restaurants now, and with it, guacamole. Just a second. Yes, sir.
There's at the grocery store, there seems to be the big Haas guacamole,
Yeah.
Avocado. And then there's a smaller ones that are a lot cheaper. Are they different varieties or different whatever?
Well, as Reka knows, one thing that California growers have always said is Mexico is sending different varieties up, and they're calling it the Haas. But sometimes it's something called Carmen. Another time it's something called Lamb. They're Haas-like or Haas-like, but they're not Haas. So if you see a perfectly round one, then that's probably a Carmen. If you see a big one, it might be a Lamb. If you do that as a California farmer, you get in trouble. A Haas has to be a Haas. But Mexico kind of just says, "Yeah, look, does it look like a Haas?" Yes, ma'am.
There's so many avocados in Fallbrook and not so many here, and we're so close. Is there something in the environment there that we don't have here? What's causing that?
Well, we have a lot, of course, but it's up in Duluth. The big deal difference is avocados like to be where people like to be. Fallbrook has a very temperate climate. It has more of a maritime influence. It has a little bit more moisture and water. The soils are a little bit better. Everything grows in Fallbrook. You can spit on the ground and a sunflower will come up. So that's the short answer. The longer answer is tradition. That's where they got planted early on. We were growing cattle here. Then we were growing grapes. And then we were growing people, subdivisions. So it just never took off here. But it's also just, avocados love hot weather, but they like a little bit of humidity too. And they like moisture. So, and they like a view. Sometimes they like a view. They like to be on the side. Yes.
I'd like to follow up on your comments about different varieties. Lamb, you mentioned.
Yeah.
There's such a demand now for avocados that are so greatly appreciated. Do you sense a consumer interest in other varieties, for example, like bacon? Or I know there's a new kind of Hass that you mentioned in your book that was developed.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, well, I can't remember the name of it. It has almost like a scientific name.
Well, Luna is up there. That's
Luna,
a new
okay.
hybrid put out by
Do you sense though that
UCR.
people want other varieties now? The consumer wants some variety.
I'll answer for you, Reka. Reka has this. I didn't mean to push Reka this whole time. She's wonderful, but she's very unique in that she has this thing called Avocado Monthly. Other groups have it too, because it's that old dream of being able to grow avocados year round and being able to buy an avocado anytime you want, but it's going to be a different variety. So the short answer is absolutely. Reed avocado, which is that big cannonball one that you saw, they're delicious avocados. And there's a guy named Robert Jackson here in Fallbrook, and he's really pushing to make Reed a thing, to make it happen. And if you go to specialty markets like Sprouts occasionally, you'll find a Reed there. Or you'll find an avocado called Gem, which is named after Greg E. Martin, who kind of invented it in the 80s. And they're beautiful, large, higher in oil content often than Hass. And a lot of people like Gem as well. One reason is we all think avocados, only criterion that's worth mentioning is taste. But avocado growers know there's 10 different criterion. How fertile is it? How precocious is it? How often will it give you fruit when it goes into its alternate bearing? Because avocados tend to be alternate bearing. They bear heavy one year and light. How alternate is that? Do they disappear? How long does it last? And in the case of Gem and Reed, what is the structure of the tree? Fuerte, part of the reason why we don't grow Fuerte anymore is Fuertes grow out. I remember when I was a kid, it was the best climbing tree because the branches went out and they were wide trees. Well, Hass was an improvement because it was a little more vertical. But Gem, Reed, they grow really vertical and often they hide their fruit inside the branches. So they're not as susceptible to the sun. And you can keep them short and you can plant them in a high density way. And so that is the revolution. Next revolution is that now an acre of avocados might get you 3 times as much avocado as it did in 1970 because you can plant it in high density. But you can't do that with Hass. You can only do it with these new avocados for the most part. Yes, Rebecca.
Okay, so Rob, I'd like to bring in Juan Murrieta. So Juan Murrieta.
Oh, Juan
because-
Murrieta. Yes.
So I want to just preface it before you speak.
Let me see if I can
I had
find
the
him.
opportunity to interview Juan Murrieta's grandson when he was still alive, and he told about going to Juan Murrieta's house that when Juan had moved from Murrieta to Los Angeles. It was over by the Ambassador Hotel where RFK had been killed.
Yeah.
And it was just around the corner. And he said that Abuelo, his grandfather, had a 2-story tall avocado tree there, and that he had hybrided that fruit, and it bore what was called the Murrieta Green.
Right, there was a
And
Murrieta.
he said it took 2 hands to hold it, and sometimes it would weigh up to 2 pounds.
Right.
Fact or fiction?
Oh, no, that's completely fact. Juan Murrieta, I don't have a slide of him here, but in my other presentations, I often do, because it's kind of a neat crossover, because he owned as Rebecca well knows, he owned Temecula for a little bit, and he was a wine guy. Well, he also was one of the first guys to grow avocado trees when he was sheriff of LA. And so people talked about he had an article in the first copy of that Avocado Society yearbook in 1915. The sheriff, Juan Murrieta, was in there, and he bragged about how he could sell these for so much money. And one of the first articles I found about avocados was from 1897, and it was about Juan Murrieta. And the interesting thing about this article, they never call it an avocado. It's called alligator pear. It's called Spanish pear. It's called a bunch of other things. So it's just interesting how avocado took a long time to develop. So you're absolutely right that Juan Murrieta played a key role, and Murrieta was the name of an early avocado, and it was probably a Guatemalan type. If you're saying it's big, it's like reed, which is back there like a cannonball, and I bet it was a good avocado. Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
So those of us who really would rather have local avocados than Mexican, where would we find those?
Well, I've already mentioned Reka, but one of the
Does she have a
she has a flyer on the table and a website, avocadomonthly.com. But there's a, have you ever been on the 76 mom and pop fruit stand where 76 meets the I-15? Yeah, so they'll have regional, local varieties there all year round. And that's a nice place. Atkins Nursery in Fallbrook, if you've ever heard of Oliver Atkins, very famous nurseryman from the early days of Fallbrook. He sold it to his foreman, actually just gave it to his foreman, who still runs that nursery. If you go out through Palma Valley or Valley Center, you'll see fruit stands all over the place. And that is fresh avocados grown, who knows, a few miles from the fruit stand. And then occasionally, it sprouts during the season. Remember I showed you that seasonal? You'll find Sprouts will carry California avocados. Kroger. I mean, most grocery stores in California will try to carry California fruit when they can.
Yes, sir. In years past, I've had an avocado, and I will cut it in half. And after a certain length of time, maybe hours or a day, it will turn black. Is that because of age, or it got old, or because it was the texture, it was the kind of avocado?
Well, there's a lot of possibilities for that. Again, different varieties oxidize at different rates. And so certain varieties, I've heard, you can put them on the counter and they will stay green for 2 days. You put them in the fridge. But the shorter answer is, the older the avocado, if it's an avocado that's been in cold storage for several months and then pre-ripened, when it gets ripe, it's going to go bad quickly. This is my advice for you. If you buy an avocado in the store, try to buy a green avocado. Hard. That probably means it hasn't gone through pre-ripening, and just be patient and stagger it. If you buy your avocados all the time, you don't have to worry about it. You'll get avocados ripe at different times. But if it's green and it ripens up naturally on your counter, you're not going to have that problem. Otherwise, my trick, the refrigerator is a good trick. When you feel that avocado start getting ripe, right in the fridge, and you'll extend the life by a couple days. And another trick, citrus will keep it, but rendering it into guacamole is the only way to freeze it. Render it into guacamole, put the cellophane right on the top of it, put it in your freezer, and that will be good for several months later on. Yes, sir.
About how far north in California would you say there's no more avocado?
Well, the limiting factor for avocados is not the heat, but the cold. And so that's another reason why you don't find avocados in Temecula. Especially 40, 50 years ago, we were more susceptible to frost. And so when I find avocados, they're up in Glen Oaks Hills, higher elevations. And that's often why you'll see them in Fallbrook and other places on hills, because the cold settles and you get freezes. So I guess that's the highest. We get great avocados in Morro Bay. We get great avocados up there, even in where's the highest north? Morro Bay. One of the oldest avocado trees in the world was on the campus of Berkeley, UC Berkeley. But it has to be toward the coast where you're going to mitigate that frost. You're not going to get avocado trees in the San Joaquin Valley, in the Central Valley, because even though the heat is there, even though the land is there, the freeze gets them and it'll kill an avocado tree. So really, the sweet spot is going to be Ventura, Santa Barbara, and then San Diego is still going to hang on to its avocado groves. I'm convinced people are planting more and more. They're not put off by the cost of water. We're going to figure out this water situation, people. We're going to do it. Yes, sir.
Okay, I had asked you up there, what's the best way to pick an avocado in the grocery store? and and you sort of went over that.
Yeah. And I have that in my book, by the way, How to Choose an Avocado.
But I'm sure almost everyone in here has bought avocados before and put them in the towel drawer in the kitchen, covered them up in a dark place.
Yeah.
Now, have those been gassed or whatever you want to call it, or are they ripening naturally as opposed to?
Well, 40 or 50% of the avocados you see, and the vast majority from Mexico, have been pre-ripened. Just so you know, the vast majority of California avocados probably haven't been pre-ripened. But what I have learned, because I have learned, this has been a journey for me, even though I'm from Fallbrook, I learned everything in the last couple of years about avocados. I am what is known as a super user of avocados. I eat an avocado a day. And what I have found is that I pick one from, if I need an avocado tonight, I try to get one that is just barely ripe. The mistake we make is getting one that, oh, it's really squishy. You can feel air around it. That's going to be a terrible avocado. You want one that just barely gives. And another trick is feel the ends, because sometimes avocados tend to rot from the top, from where the little nub is, where the little stem end is. And that's where it's going to rot first. So if that's super soft and it gives way too much, put that one back. It's better to get less ripe. And then as far as trying to ripen them quickly, I know no good way. The paper bag trick doesn't work for me very well. It's releasing its ethylene. So are all the other fruits. You put it with apples, you put it with bananas, you put it with all your other fruit, and you hope for the best. That's what I do. Yes, Dave.
A couple things I've heard. See, let me know what your perspective is. Number one, you want to make sure there's a stem or a nub of a stem in the avocado. If you pick up an avocado at a store and where the stem should be, if it's hollow, you want to bypass that if you can, because quite often avocados are not ripened evenly.
Yep.
There's the stem or a nub of a stem in them. Have you heard that before?
Oh, no, that's for sure the case. And again, another characteristic, certain varieties don't ripen correctly. That's why Hass became so popular. It's an even ripener. But yeah, the stem is important. But if the stem is missing, you just want to look down there. And if it's all brown, that's a bad sign. If it's still green, well, that's probably okay. Just find avocados that are not too ripe, because they ripen, as you know, pretty quickly.
What about banana peel in the bag with the avocado?
It wouldn't hurt, because those things are all giving off ethylene. It's not going to hurt. The problem that I have found with putting in a bag is, or in a drawer, you forget about it. And then you're like, well, I wonder how that avocado's doing. It's been 3 days. That avocado is gone now. And so forget about it. So I like to keep it out waiting for me. Yes.
Your personal favorite for guacamole?
Thank you. I appreciate that. Are you saying my avocados?
Your personal favorite.
Whatever avocado is at hand. I love Hass. It's been around. It's been popular for a reason. I love gem avocados, which you can't find very often. Reed avocado is mild. Everyone has its different characteristic. And really, this is what I always tell people. It's the Kenny Rogers rule. Every avocado is a winner, and every avocado is a loser because it really depends on when it was picked, how good a condition it is, how the storage was. Is it from Mexico? Is it from Valley Center? You know, those things all matter. You can't just look at a Hass versus a Reed because one could have been picked way too early and it's going to be cruddy. And the other, maybe they let it hang too late and it's going to be awful. You have to get it from a dependable person and hope for the best. And sometimes the Mexican fruit, Mexico grows great fruit, but sometimes they're making sacrifices. They're picking things maybe too early and shipping it in cold storage for months or weeks and months. And then it's the luck of the draw. It'll look good on the outside because that's what it's designed to do. And you open it up and it's oxidized, it's dead, it's whatever it is.
Okay, I have a question that goes way back to the mid-50s. We lived in Pico Rivera, Whittier area,
Oh,
and there
sure.
were 2 spreading avocado trees in the backyard.
Okay.
And my brother used to go out and harvest them, and I think at that time he was getting a nickel a piece for them.
Oh,
But they had
that
to
sounds
have,
right.
They had to have a half an inch stem on them. Now, when your guys are out picking the avocados, are they just picking them, or are they clipping them with the stem?
Well, Reka knows, but correct me if I'm wrong, Reka. They pick it in stages, so they pick it with the long stem, and then later on they'll trim it. Isn't that correct? I mean, that's usually how it works because they want to trim it right to the skin, so you don't have much, because otherwise it's going to get knocked off. And so they pick it in stages. Clip, clip, clip. Put it in their bag. When it gets back to its staging area, they'll clip it again. You know, yes. Avocados are worth a lot of money to the right people. Some people hate avocados. Who liked avocados the very first time they tried it? Oh wow, who took a little bit, a few times, an acquired taste. It took an acquired taste for me, and I grew up in Fallbrook. I used avocados as target practice really the most of the time, and I only ate guacamole for 20 years. But now I prefer it any other way than guacamole. I love avocados in every way. Yeah, in every way.
Somebody's selling a bag of 25 avocados on the side of the road for $5. Pick them up off the ground.
Well, they call those drops sometimes. Sometimes I think those people get them from Mexico. They fall off the back of a truck sort of thing. And so you think, oh, that guy's selling a bag of avocados. It must be from California. Usually not. Those are sometimes drops. So maybe, but sometimes they're just a different style of avocado. They're smaller. You can pick avocados at an earlier time and they'll be physiologically ripe, ready to go, but they're smaller. If you let them go longer, they'll get bigger and bigger and they'll stay good or they'll get better. But small avocados can be good. Remember, every avocado is a winner and every avocado is a loser. With all these questions, you all have to buy a copy, and I just don't have enough copy for all of you. So,
All right.
Thank you so much. And I'm staying here, so I'd be happy to answer any questions about. And I have my wine if you want. But really, I'm just so grateful for Dave and for Rebecca and for all of the members of the Historical Society for having me here. It's been a thrill. My own hometown. That's why I made the guacamole. So thanks so much for having me. Thank you. Thank
All right.
you.
Avocados. Who'd have thunk there's so much info about that? Huh? All right. Once again, thank you, Rob.
Thank
that was
you.
awesome.
Thank you, Dave. Appreciate it.
Reminder, once again, next month, we've got the presentation on Monday, the 27th of October. That is Jennifer Lair, an inspirational history of POWs, MIAs, and the Gold Star families. And want to give John Hess a shout out. John is the person that streams us online for us every month faithfully. We're grateful for you, sir. Thank you so much. November meeting. Oh, yes, thank you. Also, wow. Boy, do I need help here. November the 6th, November the 5th is our annual meeting for the Temecula Valley Historical Society. It's going to be at Wilson Creek Winery. It's always a really fun, interesting opportunity for a little community to hear about what we've done over the year. Also have a glass of sparkling wine when you arrive, and a little bit of music, and then a recap what's going on. We'd love to have you join us. You'll see in the newsletter more about that. So that is Wednesday, the 5th of November, starting at 11:30 a.m., Temecula Valley Historical Society annual meeting. Thank you so much for being here tonight, and we look forward to having you back next month. Thanks, everybody.